Hey everyone.
Hello.
Go ahead and
Hello.
hey, how's it going? D055720. I'm gonna go ahead and ping the channel here. Give me 1 second. We can probably get started. Excellent. Okay, let me go ahead and open up the agenda. Awesome. Okay. Let's go ahead and get started. So, hey everyone, thanks for joining. This is our second meeting of 2023, our 31st overall. We've got quite a bit of content to get through, so we're going to jump straight into it. Output filters and related discussion. I believe this was a carry on from last time. I'm going to go ahead and click this. Okay. So Ryan, I think this is some of the pieces you've been talking about on how you want some more advanced configurations with message routing to match things like, for example, what's going on with, say, Fluent D, secondary, advanced routing. Would love to maybe just hear a little bit more on some of the stuff that you were thinking of, and then I'm happy to share some thoughts we had around this recently.
Sure. Yeah. So this has much probably to do more in trying to use Fluent Bit in an aggregation type role, right? Where it has to do probably a lot more processing than we kind of usually when we push it down to more of the initial collector type role and need more advanced features. As a result, Fluent D, long having lived into that type of concept, has much more advanced concepts around message routing. So beyond just the tagging features, there's, you can essentially, I'll say short circuit the kind of message and route it off to an entirely different almost pipeline of things via a labeling system. I don't know if that's the direction you guys want to head for Fluent Bit, but it does add for a fair amount of power. Atop of that, the labeling mechanism for is used by some plugins and like output plugins, for example. I know in the open search output plugin, if there is going to be some write error, bulk errors in the in the uploads or inserts, you can take only the problematic messages and route those out to a label, which again is not something that we really see in any of the output plugins in Fluent Bit. So having a foundational piece for some of that, advanced routing obviously is a benefit in terms of the pipeline as messages are rolling through in the first place, but then also lends itself well to what we want to do for more advanced error handling of messages.
Got it. And there's two pieces here that I think are pertinent to how we can kind of solve some of this more advanced message routing. One is the difference between just Fluent D, Fluent Bit, and generally. When Fluent D sends data, it takes that same message and it actually pushes it through the entire pipeline. So if you want multi-output or you need to send it to multiple locations, you actually have to copy that message in order to route it to multiple locations. Now, Fluent Bit tries to solve some of the burden of performance on that side by using pointers. So if I want to do outputs to 58 different output plugins, it's not like I take that message, copy it 50 times. Actually, we just use a pointer reference to the message, and that's how it gets sent. Now, what we've been thinking of on the message routing side is a couple of things. What we try to solve when we're doing some of the routing is things like error handling, just like you said, Ryan. Things like I hit a bunch of issues and I want to be able to route the new messages to a backup location or a secondary. Give me a second. Or a secondary location. So the one of the roadmap items, and I'll be happy to share the roadmap here as well, is that we've been thinking about is a secondary borrowing from what Fluent has with secondary over here with Fluent. And then the other one, which I just put here, let me just put this in comment here, is the output filters. Output filters are a bit different than what I'd say is a filter in the regular pipeline sense. The idea is that if I have a log that is going to both, let's say, OpenSearch and file system, and I want to say, you know what, for OpenSearch, I don't want to include any message that contains X, Y, or Z. The way to do that today is you either have to write a Lua script or you have to write a rewrite tag and then have that same stream of data kind of re-ingested in the pipeline in order to achieve that. It's not the most elegant thing. So output filters is we can use that same single pipe or single stream of data, which has pointers to both output plugins. And then from one of the output plugins, what we'll do is we'll say, well, as we are pointing that data and taking the pointer reference, we can actually take out the data that we don't want. So in the OpenSearch plugin, we can say if data equals via Lua, or we'll have to figure out the mechanism. We can have it inline in code, filter out those messages for that output plugin while still servicing the other output plugin with kind of full data streams. There's some underlying pieces here too that we'll have to work on, which is like back pressure and how multiple outputs affect back pressure. But all of those as larger scale items. But do you think that would solve? I know it's not in the exact same method here as a pipeline or labels, but do you think this would be part of what you would need on advanced message routing?
Yeah, I think that would cover most cases. I think, again, for other folks who may be a bit more used to the more advanced that type of message routing, I think you hit the nail on the head and calling them like pipelines, right? In some other instances, people, you might have data sets that you're not looking to necessarily wait only into how you're filtering for outputs, but rather the entire data set, you're trying to say, I need to do it in a different way, a different pipeline, if you will. But for my use cases, I think much of what you just talked about is sufficient.
Okay, that's really good to hear. Awesome. Okay, let's I guess any other notes or topics on this, on the output filters? Okay, let's go on to the next two. So I actually believe Pat is he's on a train over to a meetup right now. So I think he just added these. Let's see, news release server in use. Yeah, this is important. So we had to switch over from what we use right now, which is like Equinix Metal, for all of our package hosting into a new one. So we've actually gone cloud and put everything into repositories. So if folks are having any issues, let us know. This is still, it was kind of thrown on us last minute, so we had to do a bit of a fire drill to get them back into a good place. But I think we are in a good place. So if folks have anything, let us know. Otherwise, yeah, we'll keep going. OpenSSF landscape 6-store sign. So now we're part of this OpenSSF landscape as kind of projects that support this the SIG store, and also within this we have we actually just wrote a blog kind of on the Calypso side of how this all works with cosine with OpenSSF, and then you can also use this verified sign. We have some documentation about it and how you can use cosine to do the verification. So all pretty cool stuff. Yeah, cheers for the folks who worked on that. Okay, big one is the roadmap items for this year. So let me go ahead and open up my doc. I need to convert this into some issues. None of it should be too surprising here. By the way, I've just paused my screen share, so let me just pull it up real quick. And go ahead and resume my share. Can you see this? Excellent. So these are some of the areas that we've been working on, or at least have been planning on working on. This is probably more about like I would say 6 to 8 month 2023 roadmap. There's still quite a bunch of room here to add more. One of the big things that we've been trying to make sure works really well is our ecosystem support. So for example, within the Prometheus ecosystem, there's some more conformance tests going on. So we want to be able to have that full compatibility and capability. So whether that's remote write or how even we do Prometheus export, or just making sure we play as really good citizens there. Similarly with OpenTelemetry, there's no conformance today, but at least we want to be very conformant with the logs, metrics, traces that are going on there, as well as the OTel logs with metadata. So that's stuff that we're actually working on right now, trying to make sure that that support is all buttoned up. And yeah, big shout out to the community who's been really helpful in kind of hammering out bugs and finding hey, this works, but this doesn't. It's been really great to see all the activity around OpenTelemetry and Fluent. The other one, which is new, we just actually put a PR for what we call is the plugin is called in Elasticsearch. So it reads in from any client that sends out Elasticsearch bulk requests. Works against metric beat, file beat, as well as other clients. And this was more of a way for folks who are looking to do some migrations, especially as we have stuff that goes out to OpenSearch. If folks want to migrate some stuff over from Elasticsearch to OpenSearch, this just provides another route in which that can work. So we'll ship the V1 here probably in the next version or two. But if you're really interested, there's some nightly builds with PRs out there. Metrics, this is still very, very much a growing field. We want to be, play really well and be a good citizen here. We just added a lot of Windows metrics, so replicating Windows Exporter. So you can do component selection scoping. We use WMI now, so we try to follow what the best practices in the Windows Exporter there are. We can do regex filtering on top of devices. So if you don't want to, capture a certain device or something of the sort, we can start to filter those out. Same with Linux Node Exporter. We're currently working on file system support systemd metrics. So the community has been asking for those, so we're working on that, as well as the ability to scope in and out. And I actually think the PR for that went live last night or earlier this morning. So you can scope which collections you want to collect. So say, for example, disk is every 10 minutes, but CPU you want every 10 seconds. Sure, you can add to Prometheus Node Exporter plugins and choose the interval for that. Process metrics for both ecosystems. That's going to be a bit of a heavier lift. We're going to try to figure out how we can get that. Plugin support. One of the ones we've been seeing more is Google Chronicle. So we're going to be looking to get that going. We're we're trying to get access to some Google Chronicle to see how we can integrate. But if anyone here on the call knows, that'd be awesome. Internal metrics. So some of the ideas we have here are things like adding latency metrics. So from a chunk ingest time to when it actually gets flushed, you can start to see the latency within FluentBit itself in case there's like heavy back pressure, or for example, a endpoint goes down or is rejecting a bunch of requests. If you want to create an SLA, SLO around your latency for logs, metrics, traces, how fast that data comes into your backend system, trying to create some nice metrics around that. Well, we expose quite a bit of FluentBit metrics internally, and one that I typically do side by side is CPU and memory. And so I thought, why not just have FluentBit grab its own CPU and memory, kind of like a top function. So that would be something useful, especially if folks are using those to do health checks or try to understand the usage across an environment. A V2 metrics API, this is kind of a low-hanging fruit. We have FluentBit internal metrics that contain everything all in one, and you could use Prometheus exporter, choose a custom port. But we just said, hey, let's just create a V2 API as well in case you're using the metrics Prometheus endpoint. This last one is one I ran into. I was just doing FluentBit node exporter, and I was firing it to a cloud service, and I didn't realize how much cardinality explosion I had, how many labels I had, and it was not so delightful on my bill. And I thought, wow, it'd be great if FluentBit could tell me how many cardinality metrics I'm scraping from node exporter or a Prometheus scraper or anything of that. So we're trying to see if we can get some internal metrics around cardinality that can then be used as you try to make some of those decisions. This additional Lua function support, I didn't fill in, but the idea, at least to talk about it broadly, is like, well, Lua right now is very encapsulated into a filter. And so bringing Lua into the input plugins has been something that we've been working on. So we call it input plus scripting, same thing with output filters, but also allowing Lua to hold data in for longer periods of time without having to immediately flush that data. So things like aggregations, deduplications, more stream processing style functions, which has always been done via the SQL interface, allowing Lua to do that as well. So we might be able to bump out more stream processing. There's going to be a lot of investigation in things like performance and how would this work, but I'm hoping it's going to allow for much more useful type of filters that work across a variety of data versus just a particular message or record. And then changes within FluentBit core, things like YAML as a first-class citizen, additional metadata for logs. So today logs really just contain tag, timestamp, and message. So having metadata to match the hotel specs. And hot reload. So this has been really highly requested, making sure that it works for select configurations. Input plus scripting, output plus scripting, things that I mentioned, Lua function. And then the error handling, which we were just talking about. So error handling when there's bad output, and error handling when you need failover, such as doing a secondary destination. One exciting thing, we just added a bunch of support for Debian RISC-V. So folks who are leveraging that architecture are interested in using FluentBit, we now have support for that as well. I will pause. I know I've been rambling for about 5-10 minutes, but anyone have any questions or things? And by the way, this is just one segment of the roadmap. I'm sure others have their own places they'd like to invest within FluentBit. So I'm happy to try to put it all into a single one as well. Okay. let's go back. Okay, yeah, Henning, Richard, the metrics from log PR. Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, yes, thanks for the opportunity to put this on the agenda. Actually, we are, Richard and I myself, we are new to the community meeting. This is our first one, so thanks for having us.
Welcome.
Actually, we are two software engineers working for a German software company called SAP. We have been working with Fluent for the past 3 years or so, and our logging stack consists of Fluentd, Fluentbit, Loki, and we use Prometheus for monitoring. And our users requested at some point more analytics on logs, log counting and log alerting also. And you know, the logql queries we had were inefficient, and alerting is also not possible with that. So we looked for log-derived metrics. And so since there was no such functionality so far in Fluentbit as we know, the idea came up to create our own plugin, and Richard wrote that mostly. So yeah, and to get, we're still currently testing internally, but we created already this PR to get early feedback from you, from the community. And so here we are, basically. There were already some questions last time in the last community meeting we couldn't address because on short notice we couldn't join. Performance impact was one question. We didn't do any real measurements yet from our, we didn't notice any obvious impact. We're planning some tests. Yeah, maybe Richard can go more into details on the technical side on the plugin, because he wrote it single-handedly, basically. Yeah, maybe Richard, you can go more into detail, and maybe you guys can also you know, explain the questions you had last time. I'm not sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Couldn't make sense of it completely.
Yeah, I think that would be great if you could just go through the questions here again, or the points that you wrote. So performance impact with completed. Yeah, what's meant with log metrics filtering? So to filter the metrics again, or what is meant with that?
Yeah, so this was a question around if you're capturing a bunch of logs and you actually want to filter based off of the metrics that you're then deriving, or not creating a brand new stream of metrics, but even just saying, let me dump these logs 100%, all I would care about is the metrics. I don't necessarily know if it's 100% related to the PR. I think it's more on the pipelining of Fluentbit itself. But maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong, Richard. You could take those metrics that then get derived and reingest into the pipeline. They have their own tag. And then you take the original tag and you just send that to null or something equivalent. But would that be a scenario that would be fulfillable here?
Yeah, actually with tagging of the metrics, I have some question marks, because I've not seen the use of tags in the code of the other metric or the other metrics plugins. So the node export and the Nginx export and so on. Is there any tagging for metrics already, or?
There's so tagging for the metrics. I think it auto assigns whatever the plugin name is. I wonder so there must be some tag already being generated here on the output side. We might be able to tell via just actually sending it to standard out should print out the tag that the metrics are being assigned. But yeah, they essentially
I haven't found it in the code, so yeah.
All right.
It's a little, yeah, there's only few documentation about this whole topic, so it was quite hard to get in touch with the plugin creation, and especially if with this metrics filter plugin as yeah, I think this kind of pattern has not been used before. So to kind of have a filter which doesn't actually filter, but just creates metrics and puts them in another metrics stream. So I think that hasn't been done before.
Yeah, no, it was really
yeah.
cool to see. Yeah, we were looking at doing something like this later in 2023. So when this PR came in, it was like, oh, awesome. That is so cool to see.
So are we generally, are we on the right track with that PR? Did somebody look at that yet in depth?
Yeah, I think so Pat, I believe Pat was doing some work with it. We have someone who's assigned to take a look at this in the next few days, as we start to get ready for 2.09 release. I think there was some work that was being done prior to this on I can't remember what merging was, but that's what was, I think it was some OTel bugs that folks were squashing. So I think folks should be freed up to start looking at this for a 2.09 release. But yeah, I think it's excellent. Especially it's a great start. So in fact, this is what if I go back here to just recap some of the discussion from last time, was when we were looking at this logs to metrics filter, things like, hey, the Lua filtering in its existing state doesn't actually allow you to do this extraction. So the extraction right now is you have to build this type of C plugin. Can we make this easier and more fungible for users? And that's where some of the Lua enhancement from the roadmap came from. The idea of cardinality of metrics. So if we have a ton of metrics that are being generated, and our backend system is not something that is sized appropriately, nor is it potentially cost efficient to send that much cardinality. Can we do some filtering or dropping of those metrics? What type of things can we introduce? So it's almost like this has stemmed more of those metric discussions versus. Yeah, go ahead.
A quick interruption. So especially this cardinality thing here. So wouldn't that be a point for the output plugin? More than for the filter plugin or the input plugin.
Totally.
So to limit the metrics there.
Totally. This is definitely not. Like I said, I think we just shoved all the metrics discussion into this bullet
into
point.
this point. Okay.
Yeah, but absolutely not like something like, oh, the logs for metrics plugin should do card. It doesn't make sense there, right? Because we don't even know what metrics are being generated from those logs until they get generated. Stream processing is like, how can we do some more stream processing around metrics, which again prompted some more discussion about, hey, I think we can do some of this in Lua. That is what folks kind of want to do, but Lua right now needs, you kind of have to hack it to send a message every 5 seconds if you want to do an aggregation every 5 seconds. And then, some things around conditional logic. So this one was actually applicable to the filter. Let me go ahead and I'll cut these ones out and just say metrics discussion. Was to say whether or not to extract, but this was like an enhancement request, not a must-have.
And what do you mean with conditional logic? So to maybe kind of regex or what are you?
Yeah, like say for example, you have 50 logs that all contain some specific metric, to almost have it so that you only extract metrics if a log matches a certain pattern, or if the log
because that's already implemented, at least for the regex filtering, because the filter plugin mainly basis on the grep filter. So I took the grep filter as a template and yeah, built the rest on top of that. And so yeah, the code is almost identical to the grep filter and plus the whole metrics thing. So the basic idea was to have a simple plugin to at least count messages based on a regex, and for the other two modes, so for sum and for gauge, yeah, we thought of having yeah, property for key for field where you specify the key, and then yeah, we assumed that this key this field is always yeah, a number field, and then you can just sum up or yeah, take the value as a gauge value. And so we thought of having the regex stuff for this value maybe, yeah, one step before that filter plugin. So there's maybe a yeah, another plugin which where we extract the value into another field, and then you just specify the field where the value is located in. But of course that's just a yeah, first version, and for us, mainly, at least for our use cases, mainly the counter is yeah, relevant. So I don't know how relevant it is to introduce another regex, maybe for extracting the numbers to calculate the metrics in these two modes. Yeah, and I think also a histogram and summary, they are also supported by C-metrics, as I've seen. Yeah, that would be yeah, something for next version or
The
something.
next, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but so in this this version is just a yeah, really simple
Yeah,
yes,
it's really
yeah.
cool. It's really cool. So yeah, I think we should focus on getting it reviewed, getting it launched, and then if you know both of you are up for it, maybe we do like a short webinar or something, and you could talk about the use cases or something like that. I think that would be super useful to the community and the CNCF community in a much broader way. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
very cool.
It would be cool if someone yeah, who's really yeah, familiar with this whole symmetrics thing and so on, yeah, could have a look on this code, because yeah, I'm totally new to this plugin coding here in Fluent, and so
Awesome.
I would like to have some double check here. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we'll try to get it reviewed ASAP.
Okay.
Awesome. Any other things on the log symmetrics that folks have? Okay. Looks like a new container package, Wolfie Dev. Is this a operating system? Not too sure what this is. Oh, okay. Community OS. So adding Fluent to that. That's pretty cool. And I had one more topic. It was more on some integrations with ecosystem for OpenSearch and Elasticsearch. I was working on a small converter with Lua to ECS to take Lua fields and then convert them to ECS, and then doing some dashboarding there. I was curious if anyone has done anything in the past to conform to specific schemas with filters, well, as they read data in from Fluent, or if folks had done anything like that, I'd be super interested.
Yes. I mean, that's the type of stuff I was talking to you previously about NRG, right? So especially as it relates to ECS, I know we were working on some kind of pipelines for dealing with like Nginx logs, for example, into the to conform to ECS.
I took ECS 1.0 as like the most simple example. And I just tried to use the most crude mapping between what I saw within the standard Fluent bit parser and then converting it to ECS or Elastic Common Schema. And it seems like that's the route a lot of log providers have started to go, is with ECS, and then OTel even looking at ECS, etc. So I was thinking about writing some just quick blogs with some Lua script examples on here's how you can do ECS with Nginx. So if folks are interested in that, would love to hear it. But otherwise, yeah, that should be coming soon if folks are interested. Yeah, Ryan, I might ping you offline.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, especially as paired, by the way, with what you're talking about for like in Elasticsearch style input, right? Right, that can marry up very importantly, because like a lot of how things work from the Beats architecture necessitates that there's an upstream pipeline that continues to convert the messages. There's very little that's done in the Beats side of things. So to convert them to ECS necessitates there to be, yes, processing done somewhere. And that's exactly the type of stuff I was looking at, doing in Fluent bit.
Cool. Yeah, I'd be super keen to have a conversation on it. And then I could show you, I don't know if you've seen the Elasticsearch, I can show you how it's working and everything too, just to get your feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. We can schedule something.
Cool. Perfect. Anyone else have any topics that they want to run through?
I do have kind of a question. So, we were talking about the metrics from logs. A lot, the discussion there is very much based off of essentially kind of going through and creating new metrics based off of rules as logs are kind of streaming through. Internally or more core to the project, have you guys looked at anything more in terms of like what it would take for converting a log typed object to a metric? Because I believe internally they have different schemas, right? They can't be used in the same type of filters and whatnot, for example. Is there any work being done to take something that may not come in structured appropriately as a metric that we could then essentially transform into something that would become a metric and then convert to the metric?
So yeah, actually, I think this is what Richard and Henning have already built, is you take any arbitrary log, whether it contains just text, and then do a count on top of that would be a regex. And by the way, Richard, Henning, please keep me honest. Or you take any arbitrary log, even if it's not formatted, just has log, and we take that raw text and add it as a field, and then you can extract out the metric from there.
Actually, I think the question, is or the answer of the question is that would be, I think, the inverse of this output plugin for CloudWatch with this log. I don't know the name of it. There's a log format, or the metric sent as a log, and so it's the opposite, I think, that you mean. So to have a log, and you want to interpret it as a metric, and then do some operations on that in Fluent bit. Is that correct?
I see.
So, and again, it might be that I'm not quite understanding yet from what is, I gotta read more probably about what is in that plugin. But from here, again, what it looks like is you're essentially taking a stream. So for example, in the situation where like you have that counter, right? You're going to be building a counter that's matching a certain situation, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So that's not, it's not necessarily producing like a one-to-one correlation, right? For what is like a semi-structured object to convert it into a metric. Rather, you're building metrics based off of the, logs that are coming through, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So this is just creating logs, metrics from the logs coming in. So you can count logs. You can take value of a field of a log and so on. So it generates just metrics from the logs. But it
Yeah, so that's a little bit different than what I'm asking about, right?
Mhm.
Which is a persistent stream of, we'll keep saying logs, but like, yeah, semi-structured objects that would go through a potential conversion process and then finally, be blessed, if you will, as a metric in the appropriate metric schema underneath the hood. I don't know that that's something that can be easily accomplished here or elsewhere.
Yeah,
Maybe. Oh, go ahead, Richard. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
But I was going to say maybe what would be useful, just so I know we're almost against time here too, is if there's like a specific scenario or something, like I'm getting this log from, say, Nginx, and I want to capture this metric from it and send it as a Prometheus metric here. I think maybe that is the missing piece of like fully understanding what we can apply to solve that issue, or like what the problem statement is, if you will.
I mean, I think the main use cases, right? The internal types of input for metrics right now are a defined set of entry types, right? So,
Yeah.
if, for example, though, we wanted something that was more generic that can be input as a metric, let's just say, in my use case, I have stuff that's, bigger JSON items, right? That could then be internally converted into an appropriate metric item to be treated appropriately, and then be output essentially as Prometheus style metrics, right? On the back end for output, right? I don't see that there's an easy way to accomplish that with anything thus far.
So you think of you having a message with let's say a counter and a histogram and many objects inside, and then you want to convert that into metric and push it through.
Yeah.
the
So
pipelines.
yeah, and what's important to call out here is I'm not talking about something that realistically is a log. I'm talking about it. It is in itself a semi-structured object that's just essentially not supported yet, right? We kind of generally call those logs, right?
That's what I meant with this AWS output plugin, as there is this format where you send metrics as a log. So that's the opposite. What you mean?
Or CloudWatch, you mean, right?
Yeah, CloudWatch, yeah, AWS CloudWatch. I think that's the opposite of your idea here.
Yeah. But yeah, I think from what I'm getting, there might be some pieces accomplishable today, but it might not be 100%. And then I think we could probably fill in the gaps with some more enhancements later down the line. But yeah, I think we're starting the process of getting these arbitrary data formats of logs into, okay, now it is conformant with Prometheus and open metrics via this filter. And then actually now you could even go to OTel metrics as well if you put OTel output here as well. So I think some of it is there, but we probably have to clean it up so it's super easy to understand, because obviously, right, we have all these different formats, all these different data types. It's confusing. But let me add this as like metrics. Yeah, obviously it's going to be something more ongoing. But awesome. Yeah. Hey, folks, I know we're a little over, but I really appreciate the time. If no one else has anything else, I think we can go ahead and end. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So much. Bye for now.